For a long time, Baphomet has existed in the shadows of the collective imagination as a controversial, misunderstood symbol, surrounded by mysteries. But what if I told you that what you think you know about him is wrong? That he is not just a demon, an occult icon, but a portal to deep understandings of the duality of existence? This might sound counterintuitive, right? But here's the promise: by diving into these hidden secrets of the Knights Templar and the Church of Satan, you'll uncover truths that few dare to explore. If you seek clarity, power, and self-discovery, this is the path. Imagine standing before a figure with the head of a goat, horns pointing toward the sky, and enigmatic gestures. For many, Baphomet represents the supernatural and the occult, but the truth runs much deeper. This symbol, often linked to demons and pacts, has been misinterpreted over the centuries. It carries within it a message of esotericism, the pursuit of enlightenment. If you look closely, you'll see that its hands point both upward and downward, signifying the duality of the world. It is an image that challenges common sense and calls for reflection, not judgment. Baphomet has been used as a tool to shock and provoke fear, but its origin points to something more philosophical. It is the personification of harmony between opposites, such as light and darkness, or spirituality and materialism. Think about how our daily lives are a dance between extremes: work and rest, order and chaos. This figure teaches us that we don't have to choose a side, but integrate both. Imagine applying this to your day: instead of fighting against your shadow, accept it. The esotericism here is not just theory, it is a practice for transforming your worldview. If you're wondering how Baphomet came to be associated with the occult, the answer lies in the narratives built over centuries. The idea that it symbolizes pacts or rituals is only part of the story. In truth, it can be seen as a silent mentor, pointing the way to self-knowledge. Summoning Baphomet doesn't mean calling a demon, but looking within without fear. Want a practical application? Meditate in front of a mirror, ask yourself, what do I reject in myself? The answer might surprise you. This is invoking your true inner power. Some modern interpretations connect Baphomet to Gnosticism, a belief that values knowledge above dogma. The symbolism of Baphomet may serve as a guide to exploring what is hidden within ourselves and the world. Think about the secrets we keep: fears, repressed desires, limiting beliefs. Baphomet invites us to bring these inner entities into the light, integrating them into our being. Want to try this? Start a journal of esoteric reflections, writing down your dreams and deepest emotions. This ritualistic practice may help awaken your hidden wisdom. The posture of Baphomet, with its serenity and balance, reminds us that the supernatural is not out there, but within us. It is a symbol of power that transcends the physical and connects us to the spiritual. Remember that symbols only have power when we understand them. The next time you hear about invocations or cults, ask yourself, what does this represent for me? Just as Baphomet points upward and downward, our actions can either elevate or imprison us. It is a choice that depends on how we perceive the symbol. The controversy surrounding Baphomet comes from the idea that it represents absolute evil. However, this is an oversimplification. Just as the moon has its dark side, Baphomet is an entity that reminds us to accept our complexity. It is a call to transcend judgment and explore what lies beyond the veil. When you see its image, ask yourself, what scares me here? Often, what we fear is the unknown within ourselves. Face it with courage and you'll see that it is more of a teacher than an enemy. As we conclude this introductory journey, we can realize that Baphomet is much more than an icon of dark rituals. It is a universal symbol that transcends religious and cultural barriers, connecting us with the deepest aspects of Gnosticism and spiritual practice. Its message is clear: reconciliation between extremes is the path to true enlightenment. But don't just take my word for it. Explore this in your own life, find your own interpretation of the symbol, and allow yourself to grow with it. Now, let's dive deeper into the history and myths surrounding this figure. The story of Baphomet intersects with one of the most intriguing periods of the Middle Ages, the trials of the Knights Templar. In 1307, under the orders of King Philip IV of France, the Templars were accused of heresy, and Baphomet was brought to light as a supposed entity they worshipped in secret rituals. This accusation, though lacking concrete evidence, deeply marked the popular imagination. The supernatural seemed to justify the king's political and economic actions, which aimed to dismantle the order. But think about it, why was such a powerful symbol used as a weapon of manipulation? The Baphomet associated with the Templars can be seen as a literal scapegoat. King Philip needed to eliminate a military order that was growing in influence and wealth, and what better way to do this than with the fear of the occult? During interrogations, the knights were forced, under torture, to confess to esoteric practices, pacts, and rituals that, in reality, reflected little more than the religious anxieties of the time. It's curious to note how Gnosticism was also linked to these accounts, reinforcing the idea of hidden knowledge that challenged established authority. Did you know that the Templars were seen as guardians of spiritual secrets? In this context, Baphomet may have been an allegory for forbidden wisdom, something beyond conventional doctrines. Imagine living in a time when seeking knowledge outside of Scripture was an act of rebellion. This makes us reflect, what in our lives today works as a Baphomet, something feared or rejected, but that actually holds important answers? Perhaps it's the ideas we question or the dreams we bury. Historical accounts suggest that the name Baphomet may be a linguistic corruption of Muhammad, used by the Templars to refer to Islam, a religion often demonized in medieval Europe. This detail reveals not only the prejudices of the time but also how symbols are manipulated to serve particular interests. Reflecting on this, ask yourself, which symbols or ideas in our current society are misunderstood? And what can we do to see them in a broader light? Esotericism teaches us to look beyond appearances, something we can also apply in our daily lives. The connection between the Templars and Baphomet also fueled conspiracy theories over the centuries. The occult, with its mysteries and rituals, seemed like the perfect backdrop to embroil the Templars in an aura of mystery. However, many scholars believe that these stories were fabricated to justify political persecution. Imagine the impact of this, one of the largest orders of Christendom being destroyed under accusations of demonic invocation. For some, this reinforces the idea that the power of Baphomet lies in what it symbolizes, rather than what has been said about it. Curiously, the accounts of the Templars confessing to worshipping Baphomet under torture ended up shaping the modern image of this figure. From these trials, Baphomet began to be seen as something darker and more threatening. However, it also started to spark the interest of scholars of Gnosticism and the occult, who sought to understand its true meaning. This transition shows how symbols can be reinterpreted over time. Just as the Templars were misunderstood, Baphomet may serve as a metaphor for everything that challenges our conventional understanding. With the end of the Templar order, Baphomet took on a life of its own as a symbol of the occult and the forbidden. It ceased to be merely a political tool and became an icon of practices and beliefs that challenged the status quo. It is intriguing to see how one figure can carry so many layers of meaning. From heresy to spiritual enlightenment, Baphomet represents a journey that few have the courage to embark upon. Now, as we move into the next topic, we will explore how it embodies even deeper principles, connecting dualities and uniting extremes in a masterful way. Baphomet, in all its complexity, is first and foremost a symbol of dualities. Its body embodies the masculine and the feminine, spirit and matter, light and darkness. This representation goes beyond esotericism. It is a call for us to understand that opposites are not enemies, but complements. Think about how life works in cycles. Day does not exist without night, and personal growth requires us to face our shadows. Baphomet, in this context, teaches us to accept both sides of our existence. This integration is what transforms internal conflicts into powerful forces. The iconic posture of Baphomet, with one hand pointing upward and the other downward, symbolizes the esoteric maxim, as above, so below. This reflects the balance between opposing forces and the interconnection between the material and the spiritual. Think about how this applies to everyday life. A clear example would be the act of making decisions. Often, we face dilemmas between reason and emotion. Baphomet invites us to unite these perspectives, seeking solutions that honor both. In personal practices, you might try meditating, visualizing your internal conflicts as complementary energies, not rivals. Baphomet also carries an alchemical aspect. It represents the fusion of opposites, a central principle of alchemy, the reconciliation of the sun and the moon, gold and lead. This concept goes beyond poetic metaphors. It speaks about transforming imperfect parts of yourself into something grand. Imagine applying this to your personal journey, taking what you consider weaknesses and using them as tools for growth. Write in a journal, what aspects of myself do I reject, and think about how those traits might actually become your strength when integrated into your life. Another fascinating duality in Baphomet is the union of the masculine and the feminine. The figure has traits of both, representing a balance that transcends the polarity of gender. This concept resonates with Gnosticism, which values the equilibrium of cosmic forces. In a world where we are always dividing everything into categories, Baphomet reminds us that we are more complex than we appear. Want a practical exercise? Try exploring skills or qualities that you consider out of the norm for you. A man can benefit from cultivating empathy, a woman can empower herself by developing assertiveness. In iconography, Baphomet is often shown with a torch between its horns, symbolizing enlightenment. This light represents the wisdom gained when we learn to integrate dualities. It is like a guide that appears when we are willing to confront our internal challenges. Think of situations where you felt torn, following a dream or choosing financial security, for example. The message here is that wisdom comes from balance, not renunciation. Do a simple exercise, list your greatest dilemmas and try to find the light each side offers. This might change the way you approach tough decisions. Baphomet also challenges the idea that good and evil are absolute. It teaches us that these categories depend on context and perspective. Think of the example of a ritual. To many, it may seem dark or demonic, but to those who practice it, it is a way of connecting with the divine. Similarly, in our lives, actions can be seen as positive or negative depending on who is observing. The secret is understanding that duality lies in interpretation. Cultivate empathy by putting yourself in the other person's shoes. This is practicing Baphomet's message. By accepting duality, we begin to realize that there is no light without shadow, no growth without discomfort. Baphomet reminds us that life is made of contradictions that, far from being a problem, are our greatest wealth. When we look inward and accept our weaknesses and strengths, we begin to find balance. This is a crucial point. True power lies in integration, not exclusion. As we move forward, we will see how this figure has been reinterpreted over time, transforming into an even more multifaceted symbol, adapted to the ages. Baphomet, as we know it today, was not always the same. Its evolution began to take shape with Eliphas Levi in the 19th century. It was Levi who drew the figure we recognize, combining esoteric symbols into a single icon. He described Baphomet as a symbol of reconciliation and enlightenment, far from the accusations of heresy associated with the Templars. Here, we see a philosophical shift, from a feared icon to a tool for self-knowledge. Think about how this reflects our relationship with what we fear. Sometimes, what seems threatening can become a powerful ally when understood. Levi also connected Baphomet to the principles of alchemy, reinforcing its image as a mediator between opposites. He wrote that Baphomet represented the perfect balance between antagonistic forces. This redefinition marked a new era, where occultism began to be seen as a path of personal growth, not just dark mystery. To apply this, think about an area of your life where you feel conflict. Make a list of how each side might complement the other. This is the alchemical principle, transforming opposition into harmony. Later, Aleister Crowley, another prominent figure in occultism, adopted the symbolism of Baphomet in his own teachings. For Crowley, it represented freedom and self-expression, fundamental qualities for magical practice. He saw Baphomet as a symbol of human will, a guide for those willing to explore their spirituality without the constraints of conventional morality. Want to try this? Write your own statement of intentions, something like, "What do I want to achieve spiritually?" Make this a small ritual of self-discovery and see what emerges. The evolution of Baphomet also reflects the changing way society views occultism and esotericism. In the past, these topics were treated with fear and rejection, but figures like Eliphas, Levi and Aleister Crowley brought a philosophical and practical approach. For them, occultism was a tool for self-discovery and growth. Baphomet, then, ceased to be just a symbol of heresy to become an archetype of the spiritual journey. Ask yourself, what in your life can be reinterpreted as an opportunity for growth, something that once seemed just a challenge? An interesting aspect of this transformation is how Baphomet transcended religion to become a universal symbol. It began to represent not only esotericism but also the quest for freedom of thought and self-sufficiency. Think about how this reflects the modern world, where so many people seek to understand their purpose and break free from social expectations. Just as Baphomet was reimagined, we can also redefine our own stories. A practical exercise? Write a narrative of your life, but reinterpret the difficult moments as essential steps for your growth. Over time, Baphomet has been incorporated into various forms of artistic and philosophical expression, from literature to cinema. This continuous presence proves its versatility as a symbol. It is a blank canvas for deep reflections, especially regarding our relationship with the supernatural and the rituals we practice, whether consciously or not. Think about your daily routines. How many of them are rituals that shape who you are? Perhaps, by bringing more intention to these practices, you'll start to feel the transformative power that Baphomet symbolizes. The evolution of Baphomet shows us that symbols are not fixed, they change according to time, context, and human needs. Today, it is both a philosophical inspiration and an icon of occultism. What this teaches us is that reinvention is possible, and what seems dark can contain light. Just as Baphomet transitioned from an accusation of heresy to an emblem of enlightenment, we too can reframe our experiences. Next, we'll explore how Baphomet was adopted by modern Satanism, taking on a new dimension as a symbol of individualism and rebellion. Baphomet gained a new identity in the 20th century when it was adopted as a symbol by the Church of Satan, founded by Anton Levi. Here, it came to represent individualism, self-expression, and the rejection of traditional norms. Unlike what many imagine, modern Satanism does not worship demons, but rather human strength. Baphomet, with its goat head and inverted pentagram, became an emblem of conscious rebellion. Ask yourself, how willing are you to challenge what is imposed on you in order to seek your true essence? Baphomet invites us to do exactly that. Modern Satanism uses Baphomet as a call to self-deification. In other words, it encourages us to be the masters of our own destiny. Imagine the freedom that comes from assuming full responsibility for your choices, without relying on external forces. This philosophy challenges the idea of religious submission, promoting the power of the individual. Want a practical example? List 3 areas of your life where you feel trapped by external patterns and ask yourself how you could take full control over them. This is a simple ritual of self-affirmation. Baphomet also serves as a reminder that rebellion can be productive when done with intention. In modern Satanism, it represents the act of questioning, not for the sake of empty rebellion, but to build a more authentic life. Think about issues you've never dared to challenge, whether in religion, politics, or even relationships. Perhaps it's time to revisit those beliefs. Baphomet teaches us that confrontation, though uncomfortable, can be transformative. After all, how can we know if something is valid if we've never put it to the test? In Satanic practice, Baphomet also carries a touch of ironic humor, challenging cultural and religious taboos. The Church of Satan uses this icon to highlight the hypocrisy and limitations of traditional doctrines. This makes us reflect: how often do we take symbols and beliefs literally, without questioning them? Baphomet reminds us that spirituality can be deep without being rigid. Try laughing at yourself and at situations you consider sacred. Often, lightness allows us to see deeper truths. Although controversial, Baphomet as a modern symbol challenges us to explore the limits of our freedom. It is not just a figure of rebellion, but an invitation to self-reflection. Think about the power of freeing yourself from external expectations and finding your own truth. However, this freedom requires courage. How about starting with something simple? Choose a rule you follow without questioning and ask yourself, why do I do this? This small act can open doors to a broader transformation. Modern Satanism sees Baphomet as a symbol of autonomy, but also of community. It represents strong individuals who come together out of mutual respect, not submission. It's a reminder that, even as independents, we can connect with others without losing our essence. Want to apply this? Start valuing relationships where there is genuine exchange, not control. Baphomet teaches us that the balance between independence and connection is essential for a rich and meaningful life. The adoption of Baphomet by the Church of Satan demonstrates how symbols can be redefined, challenging deeply rooted perceptions. It has become an icon of freedom of thought, breaking dogmas, and celebrating human power. As we close this journey through the meaning of Baphomet, reflect: which part of it resonates with you? Whether it's the duality, the quest for enlightenment, or conscious rebellion, Baphomet offers lessons for all who have the courage to look beyond the obvious. Did you notice how Baphomet transcends symbols and dogmas, offering a mirror for our own contradictions and quests? Which part of this journey resonated most with you? Perhaps it's the duality that challenges us, the freedom of thought it inspires, or the invitation to question the status quo. Regardless, what truly matters is applying these teachings in real life. How about starting now? Choose one aspect of your life to explore more deeply and leave a comment with the word duality. This will be your ritual to activate transformation and prosperity. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, let's uncover more mysteries.